Alright, so in this video I would like to talk about this puzzle right here. This is a fully modded magnetic Lanlan face turning octahedron, and this has been my go-to puzzle for solving for quite some time now, and I think I've now been able to form an opinion about it. So the Lanlan octahedron itself, that is the base puzzle, is definitely my best recommendation for those who want to have a decent FTO for speed solving. I would just recommend skipping over the Maru. Don't really bother with it. It just has too many quality issues, and the Lanlan is just a better built puzzle overall, and so this is definitely the option that is the best to go with for both beginners and people who want to speed solve. Now, even though the puzzle is quite good, I still recommend doing some modifications to the internal mechanism, that is to help reduce the catches and to make the puzzle just turn a little bit smoother and better. So one of the things that I did was on the edge pieces, I shaved down all of the sharp corners, effectively filleting the piece to have rounded edges, and that just helps reduce the lockups. All of the vertical edges were shaved down on the edge pieces. Then on the corner pieces, I also shaved down the edges that meet up with the edge pieces here. So those were also shaved down and rounded off. I rounded underneath the corner caps a little bit as well, and this was to help prevent corner twisting. So this puzzle has quite some difficulty with corner twisting. It's not super hard to corner twist a corner. I've had it happen a couple times in solves before, but it's not an issue that is reoccurring, and it doesn't really compromise the quality of the puzzle too much. So it's not something to really worry about. The modification definitely helped out with the puzzle. It made it turn a little bit smoother and more consistently. It also seemed to reduce pops a little bit. Now, this puzzle still popped occasionally on me, especially during quick, rapid turning, but overall the pops were reduced, and it just made the puzzle feel better to turn. So overall, I definitely recommend doing the modification. It does take quite a bit of time to do all of the pieces, but I think it's definitely worth it, and it makes the puzzle just that much more viable to speed solve. The modded version of this puzzle did get me actually 3 sub-20 singles and plenty of sub-40 singles and many sub-40 averages as well. So it's a very good cube. Not the best, but very good. Now for the exciting part, the magnets. So I actually magnetized this puzzle just yesterday and went ahead and used 4x1 N48 neodymium cylinder disc magnets, I guess. So those are the magnets that actually come with the cubicle light magnet kit, and that's what I actually used. And I went ahead and installed them. It took quite some time to install all the magnets. It had to be done quite meticulously. The triangles each have 1 magnet, and the corners each have 4. So there are actually 4 magnets in each corner piece, and then 1 magnet in each triangle. And it's actually the same number of magnets that is needed to magnetize a 3x3 cube. So that's actually really convenient, and it made it work out very nicely, and it was a very straightforward process to actually obtain all the materials. Now, actually magnetizing took quite some work. The way it had to be done was that the corners actually have caps that can be unscrewed. And so when I unscrewed the caps, it actually showed a hollow inside, a hollow interior, and I was able to glue 4 of the magnets in on the walls of the interior, and then also glue the magnets in the triangle pieces on the opposite side of the wall. This took quite a number of hours. I had to be really careful to make sure that all the magnets were matched up correctly. I did it based on a master piece, effectively. I glued a magnet in one of the corners and then another magnet in a different corner, and used those 2 corners to magnetize all the triangles. And then once that was done, I then used the triangles to magnetize the rest of the corners. So it's not the fastest approach, but I really wanted to be sure that the magnets were perfectly aligned in the pieces, and it seemed to work pretty well. Okay, so with the magnets in the puzzle, how does it affect the performance? Well, I gotta be honest with you, I really don't feel them much, if at all. So this is a perfectly smooth turn here, and you can see there's really no click. Even if I go super slowly, there's hardly any click that you can see there. I feel the pull a little bit stronger when it gets close to this point, but it's just the pull of the pieces, and it sort of kind of makes the layer a little bit easier to turn to align it up to here, I guess. But there's no real solid click like you would get on this cube. This is a YJU long B2M, and if I turn this slowly, you can see how the magnets click. So that's an example of a puzzle which definitely has stronger magnets than this, because I really don't feel them much at all. So N48s I think are actually too weak. I feel like stronger magnets are definitely going to be better for this particular puzzle, and the reason why the N48s are just so weak in this is because the wall thickness, the plastic thickness on these pieces, is quite significant. It's actually, I think, a little bit over 1.5 millimeters, between 1.5 and 2 millimeters per piece. So that's like 3 to 4 millimeters separation between magnets, and so that's quite a big gap. And that pretty much explains why these magnets are so weak. So I'd recommend using stronger magnets, but you definitely need to be sure, if you're going to do this, to use 4x1 magnets. I think if you used any larger magnets, they'd have a hard time fitting inside the pieces. The gaps are quite small, especially in the triangles, and then the magnets inside the corner pieces are actually quite jam-packed close to each other, and there is some risk of them actually contacting if they go any bigger. So 4x1 is the dimensions that you're looking for this, and definitely some stronger magnets, probably N50, or maybe even stronger than that, because this is just not really giving any response. Now, how does this puzzle feel when solving? I actually do notice a difference. It's a little bit easier to align the layers, and the turns seem to flow a little bit better. Now, one thing I have noticed is that this puzzle is significantly heavier than it used to be, and that is definitely a problem for me because I can't do as long of solving sessions, and it seems to make the turning a little bit more substantial, and therefore I can't turn quite as quickly as I used to be able to. But with that being said, performance is still quite good. Man, my turning is rusty. There we go. Okay, so my point is it still turns quickly enough, and it's definitely viable for speed. It's just, I don't think it can keep up the speed as much as I used to be able to when the puzzle was a little bit lighter weight and the layers didn't have so much momentum to them. Now, one thing I thought I'd do really quick is compare this to my 3D printed Speed FTO, and the more that I have played with the Lanlan, the more I think I actually like this less and less, and that's just because it seems to lock up in ways that a puzzle shouldn't lock up. And I just don't really like the way it feels. It's very, very smooth and slick, and it never ever pops. Corner twists are a little bit of an issue, but I know how to fix that in the second version, which I may do in the future. But it just seems to have too many catching and clunkiness issues that I just don't like this puzzle quite as much, at least when I feel it, when I'm turning it. I do prefer turning the Lanlan, even though it, may have some popping issues. It may, be a little bit slower, but I still think I prefer turning this puzzle and solving this puzzle over my 3D printed version. So what's the final verdict? Is it worth magnetizing the Lanlan FTO? Well, I'm honestly not too sure. I can't really come to a definitive conclusion here. I feel like if I had used stronger magnets, it definitely would have turned out a little bit better, and they would have made more of a difference in the puzzle. So that's the one thing I can't really comment on that very much, because I don't actually have strong enough magnets to really make a significant difference. So I really don't know if it will be much better. What I can say, though, is that it was quite a bit of work, and it does make the puzzle quite a bit heavier. It makes it turn just a little bit slower than it used to. But even with these weak magnets, I feel like it actually does help keeping things in alignment. One of the things to keep in mind with a face-turning octahedron that's really different from a 3x3, for example, is on a 3x3, all of the layers are perpendicular to each other. So these two adjacent layers are perpendicular, so that means whenever you turn a layer, all that force is going to go into turning this layer, and none of it's really going to bleed into any of the motions for the other layers. And so that's why 3x3 turning is really controlled, and you can really do the turns that you want to do, I guess, if that's a way to say it. However, on an FTO, these layers are not perpendicular to each other anymore. So when you do a turn, some of that force is actually going to bleed into turning the other adjacent layers. And that is quite problematic because it means that the layers are going to turn, some layers are going to turn on you that you don't want to turn. I've often had it where like the back layer would turn on me when I'm trying to like do first two triples or something like that. So that's the thing with the geometry of this of the puzzle in particular, is that you have that issue. So that's one of the reasons why I felt like adding magnets would help. Unfortunately, these magnets are just too weak to really combat that very much, and so unfortunately I can't really give a definitive answer here. But it was a great experience. This is my first magnetic puzzle that I've created on my own, and overall it is quite nice. I do like it, and I'm glad that I did it. Hopefully in the future I can experiment with more magnets and different placement inside the pieces to maybe make better versions of this puzzle. And to close out this video, here are a couple of solves. Nice. Oh my god, way to fail that.